morning, Richard.
Morning, Sherm. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I've been doing a number of interviews over the last couple of weeks, and obviously, I'm in the beautiful Okanagan, British Columbia, and we're pretty much all the restrictions and vaccination passports and all those things are gone. So we're back on for one-on-one meetings and conferences, and so things are really opening up in Canada. I'm here with Richard Williams. Richard Williams is the CEO of Cornish Metals. And Richard's also a longtime associate of mine. I've been working with Richard for a number of years, and maybe just tell everybody where you are. I think you're in London, I guess. Are you, Richard?
Yes, I'm in London for the next couple of weeks. As you're probably aware, we've recently announced a just over £40 million financing for Cornish Metals, and that's going to allow us to focus our energy and attention on the South Crofty tin mine, which was a very iconic mine in Cornwall, southwest England, and it'll allow us to advance the project through a feasibility study over the next 2.5 years. And part of that process is to dewater the mine and get access to all of the old workings. So a very exciting time for the company.
Yeah, very exciting. And, I did a recent little clip on Cornish Metals, just talking about how long, I've been involved with the company and some of the strategic shareholders, in particular, Osisco. In addition, there's lots of other significant strategic shareholders that have been a supporter of Cornish Metals over the years. But really impressive thing that you put together, Richard. It's like we've talked about in other conversations, it's almost like pushing this string up a hill over the last 6 years, and congratulations. And I think investors should be fully aware of the significance of this transaction. It's really transformational, and to me, leads the way to putting this asset into production. And more importantly, I guess, is to talk just briefly about how important tin is to the mining world and in this whole electrification transformation that we're going through. So we've got a few minutes, and it's not easy to get Richard Williams, the Chief Executive Officer of Cornish Metals, to talk about the exciting aspects of tin, number one, and also how much opportunity there is to be a shareholder of Cornish Metals. We look for projects, we look for companies that have great projects, great people, and are available at the right price. And it's really developing the awareness around that, so that investors can get a decent return on their capital by buying the right companies run by the right people with the right quality projects. So with that, I just turn it over to you, Richard, to give us the highlights of why we should be so interested in tin and why we should be buying Cornish Metals.
Yeah, thanks, Sherm. Well, from the tin perspective, I think it's important on a macro level to understand what tin is used for, and the principal use for tin today is as solder. So anything with an electrical circuit board, electrical connection, has got tin in it. So when you look at this transition into renewable power, electric vehicles, improved computing capacity, 5G, the whole spectrum of new technologies requires tin. And the interesting thing, I was at a conference just 2 days ago, and one of the questions from the audience about tin was concerning substitution. Obviously, we've seen the price of tin go up significantly over the last 1.5 years. But really, the only substitute for tin in solder is lead, and lead's been outlawed because of its toxic characteristics. And more importantly, when you look at electronics, the amount of tin used per unit, per appliance, it may be an iPad, an iPhone, or any kind of a phone, computer, television, the amount of tin used per unit is very small. So, from a unit cost perspective, an increase in the tin price really doesn't have much of an impact on the unit price of the whole appliance.
Right.
So we don't see any changes coming forward. I think more importantly, from a production, supply, demand perspective, is we're still in this environment where 75% of all of the mined tin coming into the kind of the demand sector is sourced from 3 countries: China, Myanmar, and Indonesia. And obviously, with the current geopolitical uncertainty that we are facing, I think there's definitely much more awareness within central governments to the importance of domestic supplies of some of these minerals if you can access them. And we are fortunate here in the UK to have Cornwall, which is a world-class mineralized district, one of the world's foremost tin provinces. So, the South Crofty mine was the standout operation. It was a mine for 400 years. Initially a copper mine for the first 300 years, and then a tin mine from 1905 until when it closed in 1998. So it's high grade, it's underground. It was still operating when the tin price had dropped to $4,500, $5,000 a ton in the late 80s, right through to its closure in 98. Didn't really lose a lot of money, which I think speaks to the high grade nature of the mineralization. And now we're looking at a tin price environment in excess of $40,000 a ton. The advantage as well for South Crofty is that it's a permitted operation. We've got what's called an underground permission here in the UK, which is the equivalent of a mine permit, which is valid for another 49 years. And we've got full planning permission from local government to build a process plant. So from a permitting perspective, and permit risk, which, as we all know in the resource business, is one of the highest risks facing any project, we enjoy having a fully permitted project and very strong local community support to see the mine go into production. So you've got a commodity that's really important to this energy transition that we're all going through. And we've probably got the highest grade, or it is the highest grade resource that we're aware of in the world that is currently not in production. And it could produce, we think, sufficient quantity to meet all of the UK's tin demands going forward.
Well, I know those are great highlights. And I guess one of the things that I wanted to highlight, I guess even for myself and for our group that is invested in Cornish metals, is the importance of this recent financing, and getting the involvement of someone at the level of Sir Mick Davis, along with already the established partners like Osisko. I think investors should be aware that, if you're going to have a position in the public markets in a high quality company that's got exposure to strategic metals, one should really look at Cornish metals. Because at 35 cents a share, we're pretty much investing alongside, some pretty serious people that have done their homework. And I think that's where investors can really limit their downside by being involved with companies that are well run. You've got an extremely strong board led by individuals like Gren Thomas was previous. I guess Gren's the previous chairman.
Right. Patrick
Anderson and all these incredible quality names, and that investors can simply, by pressing a button, become part shareholders of this incredible project. And if they think long term, people can make a lot of money over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, when we acquired the project in 2016, we were firm believers in the future of tin. Number one, I think the best time to get into an investment is when something is completely overlooked and underloved. And I think that's what we did at the time.
Sure.
And it was really a matter of timing as to when the tin price was going to accelerate upwards. The International Tin Association, based here in London, which covers the entire spectrum of participants in the tin world, had been predicting what they call a technology supercycle. And that supercycle, really a catalyst for it advancing very quickly was COVID at the beginning, with people working at home, wanting better computing capacity, trying to buy more laptops, better internet access. And what we've seen over the last year and a half is really how tight the tin market is. Supply was meeting demand, but any growth in demand was going to have a serious impact on the supply side, and consequently an increase in the tin price. And so we're in this environment today where, you know, just for example, at electric vehicles, you're looking at double the amount of tin in a vehicle, electric vehicle, compared to a conventional vehicle. And not only that, you know, we've already gone through a period of so-called miniaturization where manufacturers have looked to use less and less tin, but corresponding with that period of miniaturization, you've had this explosion in demand for appliances. So even though you're using less tin per component, the number of components have multiplied significantly. And we see that growth continuing. And what's remarkable about the tin world, it's not a big market, you know, it's nothing like the copper world, but there really aren't that many high quality projects out there that are ready to come on stream. And that's something that the International Tin Association continues to highlight. They see annual tin demand growing from current levels of around 360,000 tons a year over the next 5 to 7 years, up to 550,000 tons a year. That's massive growth in the tin world. You know, there's been one project in particular that's come on stream that's, you know, the standout world-class deposit. That's in the DRC, called Bissy. But outside of that, there's really very few projects ready to come on stream. And because we are permitted, and it's a good jurisdiction, I think that was really attractive to Vision Blue Resources and Sir Mick Davis and his team. And, you know, they've obviously got access to projects globally. And I think it's a real, you know, a very good endorsement on the management team that we have here at Cornish Metals, the project that we've got in Cornwall. And it ticks all of the boxes, not just from the technical and community aspect, but, you know, ESG is now becoming a very prominent theme in the sector. And, you know, I think it's apparent to see that we've got very strong support from the community. It'll generate a lot of jobs for an area that really needs them. And, you know, at central government level, I think there's a recognition from government that we can play a good part in the UK's aspirations to meet net zero over the next 20, 30 years.
Well, that's great. You know, thanks for a great update, Richard. I've been the last few minutes with Richard Williams, the CEO of Cornish Metals. I really look forward to seeing you again, you know, live and in person. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. And for our listeners, I was fortunate to do the underground tour. I was in Cornwall and actually did the site visit. So I was underground looking at the water to which you speak of that's going to get dewatered. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to at some point being there to see the progress on site and ultimately the mine opening.
No, for sure. You know, and I think to answer your question about when you'll see me next, I will be at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. So for some of your audience who live or might be attending the conference, I will be there if they want to swing by and have a chat.
Yeah, sounds great, Richard. Thanks again for your time. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you, Sherman. Bye now.